The safe house was not supposed to be found. That was the first thing Amber thought as the windows rattled. A deep vibration rolling through concrete and glass. Not thunder. Not traffic. Something deliberate. Fabiano was on his feet instantly. The calm in his face sharpened into command. "Lights out," he said softly. The room dropped into darkness. Emergency strips glowed faint red along the floor. Amber's heart slammed. Her body moved before fear caught up. She followed Fabiano instinctively. Staying close. Staying quiet. Then the explosion came. Not close. Below. The building groaned like a wounded animal. Car alarms screamed somewhere in the distance. The smell of smoke crawled up the stairwell. Vehicle bomb. Russo's voice crackled through the dark. Garage level. They found us. Amber's stomach turned to ice. This place was known to less than 10 people. All trusted. All family. Fabiano jaw tightened. Inside job confirmed. Another impact. Glass shattered this time. Flames licked up the curtains as a burning bottle crashed through a side window. Fire spread fast. Hungry. Uncontrolled. Move. Fabiano ordered. Gunfire followed. Sharp. Close. Amber ears rang. Her hands shook. But her mind stayed clear. She saw the wine rack. Floor to ceiling. Dozens of bottles. High proof. Highly flammable. An idea formed. Wild. Desperate. Right. Cover me. She shouted. Fabiano turned. Saw her eyes. Understood. Gunshots cracked again. One of the guards went down hard. Alive. Bleeding. Amber ran. She grabbed 2 bottles. Smashed one against the floor. Soaked her scarf. Flames leapt eagerly. Her hands burned. Her fear vanished. She threw. Fire exploded across the doorway. Men shouted. Retreated. She threw another. Chaos bloomed. Smoke thickened. Time stretched. Amber grabbed the wounded guard. Dragged him. Straining. Ignoring pain. Fabiano cleared the window with his elbow. Glass fell outward into the night. Go. He ordered. Russo first. Then the guard. Then Amber. Fabiano turned to follow. The shot came from above. A clean sound. Precise. Fabiano body twisted. Blood blossomed across his shirt. Amber screamed. He fell into her. Heavy. Warm. Move. He growled through clenched teeth. She dragged him. Muscles screaming. Fear distant. They hit the fire escape. Metal rang beneath their weight. Amber pressed her scarf to his shoulder. Hard. Pressure. She said. Stay with me. Gunfire echoed below. Footsteps. Shouts. They ran. Stumbled. Escaped into rain-soaked alleys. A car waited. Engine roaring. Inside. Nah. They piled in. Russo drove like the world was ending. Amber kept pressure on the wound. Her hands slick with blood. Her voice steady. You are not dying. Not tonight. Not on my watch. Fabiano laughed weak. You are terrifying. She did not stop. Would not stop. Sirens wailed behind them. The city blurred past. When they reached the warehouse, men rushed forward. Weapons drawn. Eyes hard. Fabiano was laid on a table. Lights harsh. Medical kit opened. Amber stitched. Hands sure. Mind clear. When it was done, she sagged. Fabiano looked at her. Blood loss pale. Eyes alive. You saved me, he said. She met his gaze. Breathing hard. I told you. Truth has enemies. Outside. Rain fell harder. Somewhere in the dark. Someone realized. This war had teeth. And Amber Rogers was no longer just watching. Morning came without sunlight. Only cold steel light and the echo of decisions already made. Amber had not slept. Neither had Fabiana. The warehouse hummed with restrained violence. Men moved quietly. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Phones vibrated with information that made faces hard. Amber sat at a metal table, surrounded by documents. Her hands steady. Her eyes sharp. Blood still faintly stained her sleeves. Fabiano stood across from her. His shoulder bound. His posture controlled. Pain hidden behind discipline. You saved my life last night. He said. Now you help me understand why someone wanted me dead. Amber nodded. She slid a folder toward him. Every forgery we traced shares the same pattern. Same suppliers. Same authentication shortcuts. Same timing. She tapped the page. All of them passed through the same internal channel. Fabiano's eyes darkened. He already knew what she was going to say. He was just not ready to hear it. Elena. Amber said quietly. The name landed heavy. Not explosive. Worse. Fabiano closed his eyes for a brief moment. Not denial. Grief. She has been with me for 7 years. He said. She knows my habits. My movements. My locations. Which means she knew about the safe houses. Amber replied. Yes. Russo entered then. His face grim. Phone in hand. Cape. We pulled the financial trail. Payments tied to the forgeries. Shell accounts. Encrypted transfers. He hesitated. They all route through one primary source. Fabiano did not ask. Who? Russo swallowed. Christiana. The name cracked the room open. Amber felt it immediately. The shift. This was not business anymore. This was blood. Your cousin? She asked softly. Fabiano jaw tightened. The muscle pulsing beneath skin. My father's nephew. My shadow since childhood. He turned away. Stared at nothing. He always wanted more. Respect. Control. Legacy. Amber spoke carefully. And you had it. Yes. Russo continued. Cristiano has been positioning himself quietly. Meeting other families. Promising stability. Using the forged documents to paint you as careless. Amber exhaled slowly. So the scam was never about the money. Fabiano turned back. Eyes cold. It was about removing me. A long silence followed. Heavy. Final. He tried to kill you. Amber said. He tried to kill you first. Fabiano replied. Their eyes met. The truth settled. This was a coup. Where is he? Fabiano asked. Russ answered without hesitation. The Staten Island estate. The old one. Your father left it untouched. Amber felt the chill crawl up her spine. He wants symbolism. She said. He wants the ending written where it began. Fabiano nodded. He thinks I will come alone. Bleeding. Desperate. Amber stood. Then let him think that. Fabiano looked at her. No. This ends tonight. Amber stepped closer. Voice steady. You are wounded. He is armed. And he expects you. She placed a phone on the table. Screen glowing. He does not expect evidence. The recording from the library. From the warehouse. From the financial trail. Truth is your weapon. Not Ray. Fabiano studied her. Really studied her. You are not afraid of him. Amber swallowed. Then shook her head. I am afraid of what happens if you do not end this. Something shifted in him then. Something settled. Gather the loyal ones. He ordered Russ. No speeches. No theatrics. He turned to Amber. You stay behind me. She lifted her chin. You stay alive. A corner of his mouth twitched. Fair trade. As they moved toward the vehicles, the city watched silently, unaware that an empire was about to choose its future. Amber stepped into the car beside him. Heart steady. Fear distant. She had faced truth. She had faced fire. Now she was about to face betrayal, wearing a familiar face. And she knew. Whatever happened next, nothing in this world would ever be invisible again. The Staten Island estate waited in silence. Iron gates open like a challenge. The house dark, except for a single winglet from within. Amber felt it the moment they stepped inside. This place remembered blood. It remembered decisions that never made it into records. Fabiano moved first. Wounded but unbroken. Every step controlled. Every breath measured. Amber stayed close. Her phone warm in her pocket. Recording quietly. Truth armed and ready. The library smelled of dust and old power. Shelves towered high. Family portraits stared down, with judgment carved into their frames. Cristiano Pinto sat in a leather chair like a king, who believed the crown was already his. Gun loose in his hand. Smile sharp and careless. Cousin, Cristiano said. You look tired. Fabiano stopped a few steps in. Put himself between Cristiano and Amber without thinking. You tried to kill me, Fabiano said calmly. Cristiano laughed. A brittle sound. I tried to save the family. You went soft. You trusted outsiders. His eyes slid to Amber. Disgust clear. A waitress. Really? Amber stepped forward just enough to be seen. Her voice steady. Clear. You used forged documents. You planted tracking devices. You ordered assassinations. Cristiano scoffed. You think anyone will believe you? Fabiano spoke then. Cold and final. I believe her. That was when Cristiano snapped. You were always his favorite. Cristiano shouted. Everything was handed to you. While I waited. He raised the gun. Everything happened at once. Cristiano fired. Fabiano moved. Amber dove. The bullet tore through shelves. Books exploded into paper storms. Guards rushed in. Gunfire filled the room. Shouts echoed. Amber hit the floor behind a desk. Her ears rang. Her heart hammered. Cristiano reappeared in front of her. Gun aimed. Face twisted with fury. You should have stayed invisible, he said. Amber stood slowly. Hands raised. Eyes locked on his. She spoke in Sicilian. The old words. The ones her mother taught her. You are afraid, she said. Because you know you lost. Cristiano hesitated. Confused by the language. By the calm. Family remembers betrayal. Amber continued. And it always collects its debt. Fabiano appeared behind him. Cristiano. Do not. Cristiano turned. Fired again. The shot hit Fabiano in the chest. Time shattered. Amber screamed. Ran to him. Hands already pressing. Blood everywhere. Too much. Fabiano eyes found hers. Stay with me. She begged. He smiled faint. Still commanding even now. Love you. He whispered. Cristiano tried to run. Russ tackled him hard. Gun skittered away. Cristiano screamed as he was restrained. Sirens wailed outside. Growing closer. Amber held Fabiana. Refused to let go. Her voice a lifeline. You are not dying. You promised me dinner. You do not get to leave. Paramedics flooded, hands pulling her back. Working fast, Amber stood shaking, watching doors close around him. Cristiano was dragged away, shouting, cursing, finished. As the ambulance pulled away, Amber stood alone in the rain, blood on her hands, phone still recording, truth preserved, love exposed. She had spoken, she had fought, she had loved, and no matter what happened next, the lie died in that library, along with the man who tried to own it. 6 weeks passed like a slow-held breath. Amber Rogers learned how quiet the world became after violence stopped. Hospitals hummed. Hallways smelled of antiseptic and second chances. Time stretched thin between updates and waiting. Fabiano survived. The doctors said the bullet missed his heart by less than an inch. Luck, they called it. Amber knew better. Truth had protected him one more time. She sat beside his bed every day, sometimes reading quietly, sometimes just listening to the rhythm of machines, sometimes holding his hand when pain dragged him under. When he woke fully, the first thing he did was look for her. You stayed. His voice rough, weak. She smiled through tears. I told you. You still owe me dinner. He laughed softly, a sound that felt like victory. Outside the hospital room, the world burned. Cristiano Pinto confession spread fast. Financial trails, forgery networks, assassination orders. Everything documented, everything recorded. The invisible waitress had left a paper trail no one could erase. Headlines followed. Massive art fraud ring exposed. International arrests made. Historic collections under investigation. Amber did not read them. She was busy meeting federal agents, explaining seals, explaining language, explaining how lies survived centuries when people wanted them to. They listened, because now they knew who she was. Fabiano was released under guarded protection, his empire shaken but standing. He moved carefully now, not weaker, sharper. The men around him watched Amber differently, not as staff, not as an accessory, as authority. The first time she walked into the penthouse office again, the room stood, not out of fear, out of respect. Fabiano watched her take her place beside him, pride quiet in his eyes. You changed everything, he said later, when the doors were closed. She shook her head. I told the truth. Everything else followed. There were losses, money, allies, illusions. But there was clarity. The forgery empire collapsed. Museums quietly returned stolen pieces. Academics resigned. Reputations burned. Amber received offers. Universities, foundations, museums. She turned them all down, because she was not done. One evening, as the city glowed below them, Fabiano stood beside her on the balcony. You could leave, he said. No one would stop you. She looked at him, really looked. I know. Why stay? Because truth should be protected by people who understand power. And because you listen. He reached for her hand. Careful, reverent. I am changing things. Slowly, legitimately. She smiled. I would not stay if you were not. Below them, the city moved on, unaware of the war it had narrowly missed. Amber leaned into him, breathing him alive. Here, the invisible girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had stared down lies, spoken when silence was safer, and survived. Whatever came next, she would not disappear again. 3 months later, the city felt different to Amber Rogers. Not quieter, not safer, just honest. Truth had a way of changing the air. The rain fell softly that evening, turning Manhattan into reflections and light. Amber stood on the balcony of the rebuilt penthouse, the same place where everything had almost ended. Behind her, glass doors opened. Fabiano Pinto stepped out. Alive. Whole. A faint scar visible where death had tried and failed. "You're thinking loudly again," he said. She smiled. "I do that now. Thinking without hiding." Below them, the city moved. Millions of lives intersecting. Unaware of how close power had come to collapsing inward. The world knew now. The forgery ring. The betrayal. The names that once commanded respect reduced to court transcripts. Cristiano Pinto was gone. His legacy rewritten in indictments and silence. Elena had testified, her voice shaking. Truth extracted the way it always was. Late and expensive. Fabiano had changed. Not in the ways newspapers understood. He listened more. He questioned more. He dismantled quietly. Sold pieces that carried blood. Kept only what was real. Amber watched him become something else. Something rarer. A man with power who chose restraint. Inside the penthouse, a gathering waited. Not a celebration. A beginning. Scholars. Archivists. Students. People who loved history without trying to own it. Amber stepped forward when Fabiano took her hand. He spoke simply. "Truth is worth protecting. And this is how we protect it." The Elena Rogers Foundation was announced that night. Fully funded. Global. Dedicated to authentication preservation and teaching people how to see what others missed. Amber felt the room shift. Felt eyes land on her. Not with doubt. With recognition. She spoke then. "No notes. No fear. I spent years invisible because I thought survival required silence. I was wrong. Truth survives when someone is willing to speak it. Even when their voice shakes." Applause filled the room. But Amber only looked at Fabiana. He was watching her like she was the rarest thing he owned. Which she was not. She belonged only to herself. Later, when the room emptied. When the city softened. When champagne went untouched. He kissed her. Not desperate. Not rushed. Certain. "I love you," he said. She did not hesitate. "I love you too." The words felt solid. Unforged. Amber thought of Il Palazzo. Of the night she stood in a corner holding water. Of the moment she chose to exist. She had started invisible. She ended undeniable. Fabiano had started alone. He ended seen. Together, they had learned the same truth. Power without truth was fragile. Love without respect was fake. The rain continued to fall, washing the city clean. And somewhere below, history quietly corrected itself. Amber Rogers had mastered the art of not existing. She moved through Il Palazzo the way shadows slid across marble at dusk, present but unnoticed, essential yet ignored. The restaurant breathed power. It inhaled money and exhaled decisions that changed markets, elections, lives. Every night the air hummed with quiet authority, with voices trained never to rise, with laughter measured in millions. Crystal glasses chimed softly. Cutlery whispered against porcelain. Even the silence felt expensive. Amber carried a silver tray balanced perfectly on one palm, her posture straight, her steps soundless. She did not rush. Rushing drew attention. She did not hesitate. Hesitation invited questions. Her face wore the careful neutrality she had practiced for years, pleasant but forgettable, a smile that revealed nothing and asked for nothing in return. Invisibility was not an accident. It was a skill, a necessity. At 23, she knew how to read a room faster than most people read menus. She tracked who held power by who spoke least. She knew when to refill a glass before the guest realized it was empty, when to step back before a conversation turned dangerous. She understood hierarchy instinctively, not because she respected it, but because it could crush you if you ignored it. Tonight, the private suite on the third floor radiated a different gravity. Security was tighter, voices were lower. The manager's instructions had been clipped, tense. No mistakes, no interruptions, no questions. The kind of night where one wrong move could cost more than a job. Amber passed through the security checkpoint without incident, metal detectors sweeping over her body, eyes sliding past her face. The men guarding the door barely registered her presence. Good. That meant she was doing it right. Inside, the room was breathtaking in a way that felt deliberate. Coffered ceilings, silk wallpaper, a single long table set beneath a chandelier that looked like frozen fire. Manhattan glowed beyond the windows, distant and unreal, as if the city itself were merely decoration for what happened here. She set down water glasses, adjusted napkins, aligned cutlery to precise angles. Her mind cataloged everything automatically, details imprinting themselves whether she wanted them to or not. The weight of the chairs, the grain of the wood, the faint smell of old paper beneath polished leather. At exactly 7 o'clock, he arrived. Fabiano Pinto did not announce himself. He did not need to. The room shifted when he entered, like gravity recalibrating. He was younger than Amber expected, mid-30s at most, wearing a suit that fit him the way armor fit a knight. Dark hair, dark eyes, a stillness that felt intentional, controlled, dangerous. He did not smile. He did not scan the room. He simply took his seat at the head of the table as if the world had already arranged itself for his comfort. Amber poured water beside him. Still, not sparkling. Someone had briefed her well. She felt him before she saw him look at her, a brief assessment, sharp and unreadable, then his attention moved on. Dismissed, invisible. Her chest loosened slightly. Being unseen meant being safe. The others arrived in a staggered procession. A man in his 50s with a predator's smile and expensive cologne. A woman clutching a leather portfolio like it contained her spine. Lawyers, advisors, men who spoke in numbers large enough to blur meaning. Amber retreated to the corner with her water pitcher, becoming part of the furniture. From here, she watched everything. The portfolio opened. A document was revealed, old parchment resting in archival foam, ink faded to a dignified brown, a wax seal pressed deep and confident at the bottom. The kind of artifact museums fought over. The kind that rewrote history when it changed hands. Amber's breath caught before she could stop it. Her brain did what it always did, firing connections faster than fear. Texture, ink density, the way the seal caught the light. Something tugged at the edge of her awareness, quiet but insistent, like a wrong note in a familiar song. She told herself it was nothing. It had to be nothing. She was a waitress now. She had learned that lesson the hard way, learned how quickly brilliance became useless when life demanded something simpler, something survivable. Degrees sat folded away like old clothes that no longer fit. Publications belonged to another lifetime. This world did not reward curiosity. It punished it. The men at the table spoke confidently. Authentic, verified, worth hundreds of millions. Words stacked on words until the truth felt heavy enough to crush doubt. Amber adjusted her grip on the pitcher. Her fingers were steady. Her face remained calm. Inside, something was wrong. She stared at the document again, at the seal, at the careful perfection of it all. The experts leaned in, satisfied. The lawyer smiled. The man with the pen lifted it slowly, ceremoniously. Fabiano Pinto's hand hovered above the page. The room held its breath. Amber stood in the corner, unseen, unheard, her mind screaming quietly while the world prepared to move forward into catastrophe. She knew that feeling well. The ache of watching truth slip past because it was inconvenient, because speaking meant risk, because silence kept you alive. Invisibility had saved her for years. As the pen descended toward the paper, Amber wondered, not for the first time, how much of herself she had already erased to survive, and whether there would be anything left if she stayed quiet one moment longer. Something was wrong. No one saw it. And in the next heartbeat, everything was about to change. The room felt tighter now, as if the walls had leaned in when the document was revealed. Amber Rogers stood perfectly still in the corner, with the water pitcher resting against her hip. Her body knew this moment mattered even before her mind finished understanding why. The men around the table spoke with practiced certainty. Their voices were smooth, confident, trained to sell inevitability. This document is authentic. This deal is final. This changes everything. Amber did not move. Moving would draw attention. Attention was dangerous. She let her eyes drift back to the parchment, as if by accident. Her gaze soft, unfocused the way invisible people learn to look. But her mind was razor sharp. The vellum was old. That part was real. The surface carried the faint, uneven texture of centuries. The ink had settled into the fibers, the way only time could teach it to. Any casual observer would have nodded and believed. Amber did not believe. Something tugged at her memory. A detail so small it barely existed. A whisper of wrongness. She swallowed slowly. Her heart began to beat faster, not from fear, but recognition. The seal. Red wax pressed deep and ornate. Impressive. Convincing. Deadly. Her brain filled with images she had not touched in years. Library tables under harsh lights. White cotton gloves. Margins crowded with notes. Hours spent staring at seals until her vision blurred. She forced the memories down. She was not that person anymore. That life was finished. That girl did not pay hospital bills. The man with the expensive smile leaned forward. He spoke about history, legacy, power. He spoke about land and money and bloodlines. He spoke like a man who had never been told no. Amber barely heard him. Her eyes locked onto the seal again. The keys. Crossed. One gold. One silver. Her breath stuttered. The gold key faced the wrong direction. It was microscopic. A heraldic detail, so small even trained experts missed it when they wanted to believe. But Amber had memorized those symbols the way some people memorized prayers. The gold key always faced right. Always. Her fingers tightened around the pitcher. The water inside sloshed softly. Her pulse roared in her ears. This was not just wrong. This was deliberate. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths. Real vellum. Real ink. Real wax. A genuine period seal. All used to tell a lie. Her mind raced ahead, unwilling to stop. Blank documents salvaged from forgotten archives. Text added by a modern hand, trained to mimic the old. A seal copied from photographs, without understanding meaning. A forgery dressed in truth. Her stomach twisted. This was not a small mistake. This was a weapon. Across the table, Fabiano Pinto listened without expression. His presence was absolute. The room bent around him. When he did not speak, others filled the silence nervously. Amber felt the weight of what was coming. The contract. The transfer. The moment the lie became permanent. Her chest ached. She could stay silent. That was the rule. That was survival. Silence paid rent. Silence paid for medicine. Silence kept her mother alive. Her gaze drifted to the man at the head of the table. He had not touched the document yet. Not quite. The pen was heavy in his hand. Gold. Expensive. Final. Amber thought of all the times she had stayed quiet. All the times she had watched truth bend, because it was safer that way. Each time a small piece of her disappeared. She was very good at disappearing. The voices blurred together. Authentic. Verified. Proceed. Her breath slowed. Something inside her settled. Not calm. Decision. She did not step forward. Not yet. She waited. Because moments like this only gave you one chance. Too early and you were dismissed. Too late and you were dead. The pen lowered. millimeter by millimeter. Amber knew that once ink touched paper, it would be over. Money would move. Men would die. And no one would ever admit they had been fooled. The room held its breath. Amber Rogers stood unseen in the corner. A waitress with tired eyes and a dangerous memory. Watching a lie prepare to become history. And she knew, with absolute clarity, that if she stayed invisible now, she would never forgive herself again. The pen hovered above the paper. Time stretched thin and fragile. Amber Rogers felt the moment balance on a knife edge. This was the last breath before disaster. The last second where silence still meant safety. Her heart pounded so hard, she was sure someone would hear it. The room had gone quiet in the way powerful rooms did when money prepared to move. Every eye was on the contract. Every mind already celebrating. No one was looking at her. Good. She took one small step forward. Barely a movement. The kind servers made 1,000 times a night. The pen dipped lower. Amber spoke. Aspetta un momento. The words were soft. Almost gentle. But they cut through the room like broken glass. Everything stopped. Heads turned. Chairs shifted. The air snapped tight. Security moved without thinking. Hands drifting toward jackets. Eyes sharp. The man with the expensive smile froze. The woman with the portfolio sucked in a breath. Fabiano Pinto did not move. He set the pen down slowly. Deliberately. As if testing the weight of the moment. His gaze lifted. Found her. For the first time that night. Amber Rogers existed. Who spoke? His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that made men confess. Amber stepped fully into the light. Her hands shook. Her legs felt hollow. But her voice held. I did. Silence thickened. She could feel every eye on her now. Judging. Measuring. Deciding how much she was worth. Fabiano leaned back slightly. Studied her like a puzzle that had just revealed an unexpected edge. Speak again. He said. Amber swallowed. She switched languages. This is fake. The Sicilian rolled off her tongue clean and precise. The dialect of her childhood. Of truth spoken at kitchen tables. Of warnings whispered before storms. The reaction was immediate. The man at the table laughed sharp and disbelieving. The woman clutched her portfolio tighter. Security tensed. Fabiano raised one finger. The room froze. Explain. Amber took a breath. Once she started, there was no going back. The sea, she said. The gold key faces the wrong direction. Confusion flickered across the table. She stepped closer. Close enough now that she could see the faint scar near Fabiano's eyebrow. Close enough that retreat was impossible. In 15th century papal seals, the gold key always faces right from the viewer perspective. It represents divine authority granted outward. Yours faces left. She looked at the document, then back at him. The parchment is real. The ink is real. The wax is real. But the seal is wrong. It is diocesan, not papal. Someone used authentic materials to sell you a lie. The words fell into the room one by one. Heavy. Unavoidable. The woman with the portfolio went pale. That is impossible. She whispered. Fabiano did not look at her. His eyes stayed on Amber. How do you know this? Because. Amber hesitated just a fraction. Then chose honesty. Because before I carried water. I carried manuscripts. I studied papal documents until I could see mistakes in my sleep. Her voice steadied as truth took over. Someone took a blank period document, added modern text with historical ink, copied a seal from photographs without understanding heraldry. It is almost perfect. That is why it is dangerous. The man with the smile slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. You will not trust a waitress over certified experts. Fabiano lifted his hand. Silence obeyed. He turned to the woman with the portfolio. Check the seal. Her hands trembled as she leaned closer. Her confidence drained color by color. Seconds passed. Then quietly. The gold key. It does face left. The room collapsed inward. Fabiano closed his eyes for a moment. Not in anger. In calculation. When he opened them again, they were cold and bright. Remove them, he said. Security moved fast. The man protested. The woman cried out. But they were gone within seconds. The door closed. Final. Fabiano stood. Walked toward Amber. Every step echoed. You just saved me 150 million. And possibly my life. He stopped in front of her. What is your name? Amber Rogers. He studied her. Then nodded once. You are no longer invisible. The truth settled into her bones. She had spoken. She had survived. And nothing would ever be the same again. The room emptied quickly after that. Power always retreated when it was exposed. Amber stood where she was. Her legs felt weak now that the danger had passed. Adrenaline drained, leaving behind a sharp, trembling exhaustion. Fabiano Pinto dismissed the remaining staff with a single look. Doors closed. Silence returned thicker than before. Only the two of them remained. He did not speak at first. He walked around the table slowly, picked up the document, studied it again with new eyes. Amber watched him. This man was not angry. Anger was loud. This was something else. Calculation. Control. The kind of mind that turned chaos into strategy. You did not hesitate. He said at last. Not a question. Amber exhaled. I was terrified. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. As if he were stripping away the uniform. The careful posture. The practiced invisibility. Fear does not stop people like you. It sharpens them. She almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she gripped her hands together to stop the shaking. If I was wrong, I would be dead. If you were wrong, you would already be dead. He said evenly. You were not. He moved closer. Not threatening. Not kind. Assessing. Tell me who you are. Not the job. Not the disguise. Amber hesitated. This was the most dangerous part. Not the accusation. Not the fraud. This. I was a scholar. She said quietly. Before I was a waitress. He waited. Did not interrupt. I studied Renaissance documents. Forgery techniques. Papal seals. I was very good. Her voice tightened. Then my mother got sick. Degrees do not pay hospital bills. Fabiano absorbed this without reaction. No pity. No judgment. So you disappeared. Yes. And yet you did not disappear tonight. She met his gaze. Because if I stayed silent again, I would have disappeared forever. Something shifted in his expression then. Not softness. Recognition. He nodded once. Sit. It was not a request. Amber sat. He poured wine into 2 glasses. Pushed one toward her. Drink. You earned it. She hesitated. Then obeyed. The wine was rich. Complex. Dangerous. Like everything else in his world. You saved me from a very careful enemy. Fabiano said. Someone willing to spend years building lies. Someone who wanted me to sign without looking. Amber felt the chill of it settle deeper. This was bigger than money. You saw what my people did not. He continued. That makes you valuable. And vulnerable. Her stomach tightened. I do not protect valuable people for free. She set the glass down carefully. What do you want? Honesty. Loyalty. And eyes like yours where I can see them. He slid a document across the table. Not ancient. Modern. Clean. A contract. You will work for me. Authenticating. Finding lies before they find me. Amber stared at the paper. The number on it made her breath catch. This is more than I make in a year. That is what truth costs in my world. What happens if I say no? Fabiano's voice did not chain. Then you walk out alive. And I spend the rest of my life wondering who taught you to see. Silence stretched. Amber thought of her mother. Of unpaid bills. Of 3 years spent shrinking herself. She thought of the way the room had gone quiet when she spoke. Of being seen. Of being heard. I am not a criminal. She said. Neither am I. Officially. A pause. What happens when I see something you do not want to see? Fabiano leaned forward. His eyes locked on hers. Then you tell me anyway. That was the moment everything changed. Amber picked up the pen. Not the gold one. A simple one. She signed. When she looked up again, Fabiano was watching her with something new in his gaze. Respect. Welcome, he said. To the light. 3 days after Amber Rogers stopped being invisible, she stopped sleeping. Not because of nightmares. Because her mind refused to turn off. Fabiano Pinto World moved faster than any academic archive ever had. Meetings replaced meals. Documents replaced rest. Truth replaced comfort. Amber sat in a glass-walled office high above Manhattan, surrounded by artifacts that should not exist outside museums. Her hands moved with calm precision. Her eyes caught what others missed. The first forgery revealed itself within an hour. A letter attributed to a Medici cousin. Paper real. Ink old. Signature flawless. Wrong rhythm. The handwriting tried too hard. Real scribes hesitated unconsciously. Forgers chase perfection. Amber marked it quietly. Fabiano watched from across the room. Said nothing. By sunset there were 4 more. Each one elegant. Each one expensive. Each one a lie. Someone had studied history deeply. Someone had access to authentic materials. Someone was building a false legacy piece by piece. This was not theft. It was infiltration. Fabiano grew quieter as the list grew longer. Not angry. Not yet. Careful. You are dismantling years of work. He said finally. Amber did not look up. I am showing you what was never real. That night the first warning came. A car followed them for 3 blocks. Unmarked. Unhurried. Russo noticed. Fabiano noticed. Amber noticed the way Fabiano's hand tightened just slightly. The car vanished before anything happened. That made it worse. The next morning, a courier delivered a package to the office. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Amber recognized it instantly. Her mother's apartment. The window. The angle. Taken less than an hour earlier. Her breath caught. Fabiano's face went still. They know who you are, he said. Amber nodded. I know. This is not coincidence. He continued. Someone wants the forgeries to pass. And now they want you silent. That night the first attempt came. A motorcycle. A red light. A truck that accelerated too fast. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world spun. Fabiano shoved Amber sideways. The impact missed them by inches. Sirens followed. Then darkness. In the safe house later. Amber's hands shook for the first time since Il Palazzo. Fabiano wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. His touch steady. Protective. You are a target now, he said. Amber looked up at him. So are you. He smiled thin. I always was. She thought of her mother, of the photograph, of the lie that almost became history. I am not leaving, she said. He studied her. This woman who should have run, who stayed. Then you stay with me, he said, where I can protect you. The air between them shifted. Danger braided with trust. From that moment on, Amber stopped being an employee. She became a witness. Each forgery uncovered tightened the net. Each discovery narrowed the enemy. Whoever was behind this, they were close, patient, and willing to kill. Amber felt it in her bones. Truth had enemies, and they were watching. Somewhere in the city, someone realized the invisible girl had teeth, and the game turned deadly.